In the summer of 1943, amidst the North African campaign, American troops stumbled upon an unexpected prize, an Italian M13 tank. What started as a routine reconnaissance mission quickly turned into a moment of levity as soldiers chuckled over the tank's feeble engine and even weaker radio. Though they faced the formidable German forces, this light-hearted discovery provided a rare respite from the harsh realities of war. While some characters in this narrative may be fictionalized, the essence of their experiences is rooted in real events that highlight the resilience and camaraderie found in the chaos of conflict. If you're intrigued by the untold stories of history, subscribing to our channel is essential. Gain access to well-researched facts and rare perspectives that bring the past to life. With clear explanations and regular uploads, we illuminate the complexities of history, ensuring you never miss a moment of discovery. Join our community today and delve deeper into the stories that shape our world. In the early dawn of 1943, the sun's first light brushed over the rocky terrain of North Africa, illuminating the remnants of a recent skirmish. American troops, embedded within the larger Allied campaign to wrest control of the region from Axis powers, had begun their day with a mix of fatigue and resolve. They had been pushing forward through the dusty desert during the previous days, their spirits buoyed by recent victories that spoke of hope against the seemingly insurmountable odds presented by the German forces. It was a time when the sands of war shifted underfoot, and camaraderie grew stronger amidst the uncertainty. That morning, a small squad stumbled upon an abandoned Italian M13 tank, a relic of a beleaguered army retreating in chaos. The tank, a testament to Italy's earlier ambitions in the conflict, stood half buried in the gritty earth, its once gleaming chassis now dulled and covered in a patina of rust and sand. The men exchanged glances, half expecting a trap. The stench of ambush lingered in the air even as the silence around them hummed with potential. A captain, emboldened by curiosity and the sheer absurdity of the find, motioned for them to approach. They did, tentative steps breaking the stillness of the morning. As they neared the M13, their laughter mingled with the crisp air. The absurdity of a captured tank, a symbol of military might, was not lost on them. They began to inspect it, nudging the rusted metal and poking their heads into the hatch, each man engaging in a contest of bravado, speculating on the circumstances that led to the tank's abandonment. From the outside, the M13 appeared formidable, with sloped armor designed to deflect incoming fire. However, what lay within told a different story. The crew quickly found the engine compartment filled with oil and debris, and their laughter turned to disbelief as they turned the crankshaft. It resisted stubbornly, then yielded to a half-hearted effort, sputtering and coughing, as though it too had lost the will to fight. "The engine's as weak as a kitten," joked one soldier, eliciting chuckles from the others. The mood lightened, if only briefly, as they began to strip the tank of its usable parts. The comical futility of the situation seemed to elevate their spirits. It was not just the engine that betrayed its operator. The radio, a component typically crucial for battlefield communications, emitted a crackle of static that was as useless as silence. This revelation brought forth more laughter, a shared moment of absurdity overshadowing the grim realities of war that surrounded them. In a conflict characterized by steel and fire, here stood a tin can, empty of purpose. The M13's mechanical failures resonated symbolically with the larger narrative of Axis miscalculations in North Africa. Italian forces, ill-prepared and inadequately supplied, often outmatched by both their adversaries and their allies, were emblematic of the cracks forming within the Axis alliance itself. The tank, once a proud representative of military ingenuity, was a metaphor for the unraveling ambitions of a nation that had entered the war on shaky footing. Laughter among the soldiers had become a coping mechanism. It alleviated the lingering dread of the battles they faced, even as it poignantly highlighted their adversaries' declining fortunes. Meanwhile, not far from where the Americans had captured the tank, German troops were engaged in their own dogged pursuit of victory, their strategies rooted in an underestimation of both Allied resolve and logistical endurance. The North African campaign had become a theatre of attrition, where supply lines stretched thin and morale fluctuated as erratically as the desert winds. For the German commanders, the loss of Italian support had begun to feel like an unraveling thread in a tapestry of war. They had relied on their allies to secure the southern flank. Now they faced the harsh consequences of that reliance, scrambling to adapt and regroup. For the American troops, the capture of the M13 represented a small, yet significant victory, a tangible piece of the larger puzzle that was the campaign in North Africa. It was a reminder that every battlefield possession, no matter how trivial it seemed, played a role in the unfolding narrative of the war. The men had come to understand that these moments of levity, extracted from the chaos of combat, were essential, a way to reclaim their humanity amidst the machinery of war. Each laugh shared around that tank was a statement of resilience, a collective refusal to be consumed by the dread of their reality. As the sun climbed higher, the shadows of the M13 faded, replaced by the relentless heat of the desert. The soldiers continued their work, scavenging for parts to improve their own vehicles, each piece a desperate attempt to bolster their capabilities for the battles yet to come. They understood that even in victory, there were no guarantees, yet here they found a moment of joy that would echo in their memories long after the war had ended. The tank served not just as a relic, but as a touchstone for camaraderie, an unlikely bond forged in the crucible of conflict, reinforcing their shared purpose and renewed commitment to one another. This encounter with the M13 tank would fade into the annals of history, overshadowed by greater battles and more significant victories. Yet for those men, it remained a bright spot of absurdity in the crushing weight of war. In their laughter, they found a strength that would carry them through the trials ahead, a reminder that even amid destruction, humanity could flicker brightly like the morning sun breaking over the horizon. As American forces pressed into Italy during the summer of 1943, the landscape morphed into a battleground, intertwining the remnants of ancient civilization with the harsh realities of modern warfare. The Italian campaign had begun as a strategic necessity in the Allied efforts to weaken the Axis powers. Scattered throughout the rolling hills and quaint villages were remnants of a once proud Italian military, humiliated and demoralized following the armistice of September 1943. While the Allies fought to liberate Europe, the Italian soldiers found themselves caught between loyalties, their equipment now a pawn in a larger game of death and destruction. Among the varied arsenal of the Italian military was the M1340 tank, a design notable for its distinctive appearance and moderate effectiveness. These tanks represented Italy's aspirations in armored warfare, bolstered by Italian engineering prowess. However, as American troops combed through the battlefields, they discovered that the M13's reputation had not held up under the fire of conflict. Its engine, often criticized for being underpowered and sluggish, became a source of incredulity among the American soldiers. The sight of a captured M13, more akin to a relic than a reliable machine of war, evoked laughter, a sound starkly contrasting the somber echoes of gunfire in the distance. The humor among the American troops was layered. They were not merely mocking the Italian design, they were reaffirming their own technological superiority. The Sherman tank, with its robust engine and effective armament, epitomized this ascendancy. In finding an Italian vehicle that struggled to keep pace with the battlefield, they were also confronting a broader narrative of their unfolding triumph. It was a moment where the absurdity of war coalesced with the harsh reality of their task, providing them a brief respite from the pressures of combat. Yet the laughter masked a deeper understanding of the fragility of human endeavor, both in the resilience of the Italian soldiers who had fought and the hubris of believing that technology alone would secure victory. As the days turned into weeks, the Allied advance revealed not just the tactical inadequacies of the Italian military hardware, but also the psychological impact of these encounters. The Americans were not just liberators, they were witnesses to the collapse of an ally. Many soldiers recalled sharing rations and stories with Italian troops in the months prior, forming connections that complicated their views. The laughter surrounding the M13 tank was not devoid of empathy. It was intertwined with the sorrow of what had been lost. Each capture represented not just a victory, but also a poignant reminder of unity crumbling amidst the chaos of war. In the sun-baked provinces of southern Italy, the narrative of the war became increasingly complex. American forces encountered Italian civilians, caught in the crossfire of their government's failing military prowess. For the local populace, the arrival of American troops was a mixed blessing. While they were welcomed as liberators from the oppressive regimes, the horrors of war still echoed in their lives, bringing waves of suffering and displacement. The sight of a failed tank served as a symbol of the broken trust placed in the Italian military, once thought capable of defending their homeland. In this context, the M13 was not merely a machine, but a vessel carrying the weight of shattered dreams. Moreover, the M13's weak radio, often rendered useless in the field, echoed the communication breakdowns that plagued the Italian command. This failure to connect, both literally and figuratively, mirrored the disconnect between the Italian troops on the front lines and the political maneuvers in Rome. Each captured tank was a reminder of how deeply entrenched miscalculations had led to disarray on the battlefield. The Americans, in their own struggles to maintain fluid communication through evolving technology, understood the stakes involved. The irony of capturing an Italian tank with a non-functioning radio was not lost on the soldiers. It was a symbol of what happens when leadership falters and systems fail to adapt. In the broader context of World War II, the American troops' laughter at the M13 served as a microcosm of the shifting tide in the European theatre. Each small victory contributed to a growing sense of momentum among the Allied forces. The tank, a chunk of steel and machinery, encapsulated not merely the defeat of the Italian forces, but the unraveling of the Axis ambitions across Europe. It signified the growing confidence of American military capabilities and the eventual realization that the tide had turned. The pride in their own technological advancements mingled with an acknowledgement of the consequences of their successes: cities destroyed, lives lost, and the profound sense of a world reeling from the repercussions of war. As the summer sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the fields of battle, American troops continued their march forward. Each step brought them closer to the heart of Italy, yet the echoes of laughter over the captured M13 were tinged with a bittersweet awareness. They were not only conquering lands, but also grappling with the moral complexities of a war that blurred the lines between victory and loss. In this intricate dance of military might and human experience, the laughter became part of a larger narrative, a testament to resilience and the enduring spirit of soldiers who found moments of levity amidst the darkness of conflict. The sun hung low in the Italian sky, casting long shadows across the scorched earth of the battle-scarred landscape. As the dust settled from the recent skirmish, a group of American soldiers gathered around the captured M13 tank, their chatter a mixture of disbelief and humor. They had expected to face formidable armor, a worthy opponent in the German arsenal, but instead they found this peculiar Italian contraption, its features both curious and laughable. The tank's modest dimensions and outdated design seemed to mock their battlefield expectations. With its thin armor, it was a far cry from the formidable machines they had learned to respect and fear. Each soldier took turns inspecting the tank, incredulous laughter erupting as they discovered its engine was as underwhelming as its radio. Private First Class James "Jimmy" Connors leaned in closer, fascinated by the engine compartment, which he could barely fit into. "You'd think they'd at least give it a fighting chance," he quipped, his voice tinged with a blend of amusement and disbelief. The M13, with its weak engine barely capable of mobilizing its weight, became a poignant symbol of the Italian military's inability to rise to the occasion against the onslaught of more powerful and better-funded adversaries. As he tugged on a loose wire, the thought struck him that this tank was emblematic of a larger narrative, a nation caught in a whirlwind of conflict, struggling to maintain its footing amidst grander forces. The laughter continued, but it was laced with the undercurrents of camaraderie and relief. Having just endured the battle's chaos, the soldiers found solace in their shared humor. This tank, a relic of Italy's earlier ambitions, provided an unexpected reprieve from the grim realities of war. Sergeant Harper, the calm center of the troop, recounted stories of their encounters with German armor that had indeed proved to be fearsome. Those moments had tested their mettle, and now, juxtaposed against the impotent M13, the soldiers could almost feel the weight of victory pressing upon them. Just then, Corporal Eddie Gutierrez, a mechanic by trade before the war, knelt by the tank's tracks, examining the rubber wheels that looked as if they might crumble under pressure. "No wonder they couldn't keep up with us," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. His hands moved over the rusted metal, tracing the outlines as if sketching a ghost of what could have been. The captured vehicle stood as a testament not only to the failures of Italian engineering, but also to the overarching theme of obsolescence that plagued many Axis powers at that stage of the war. In the race for military supremacy, they had fallen behind, outmatched by the relentless march of technology and strategy employed by the Allied forces. As daylight waned, a grey veil of evening obscured the countryside, transforming the battlefield into a realm of shadows. The tank became a meeting point, a momentary distraction from the war's harsh realities. Around it, stories flowed, stories of comrades lost, of near brushes with death, and of the families waiting back home. Each tale was punctuated with laughter, a coping mechanism as much as it was a bond-creating exercise. In the twilight, the M13 was not merely a vehicle, it became a cornerstone of shared experience, a symbol of survival against overwhelming odds. Yet amidst the laughter, an unanswered question loomed large. How had the Italian military so grossly miscalculated its own capabilities? The M13 had been designed during a time of optimism before the war's tides turned. The Italian command had envisioned a light, fast tank suitable for their Mediterranean tactics, but they had failed to anticipate the evolving demands of warfare. Instead of the advanced armor and heavy firepower that characterized their German counterparts, the M13 illustrated an adherence to outdated principles, an emblem of misjudgment that resonated deeply within the soldiers' hearts. Jimmy's thoughts drifted to the broader implications of their discovery. The war was not merely a contest of guns and tanks. It was a struggle for ideas, for the will to adapt and survive. The Italian tanks' inadequacies reflected a national psyche grappling with defeatism. In contrast, the American soldiers, united by a fierce determination, were learning to innovate under pressure. Every captured vehicle, every encounter on the battlefield was a lesson in agility, an opportunity for them to refine their strategies and prepare for the challenges ahead. As dusk enveloped the scene, the soldiers reluctantly pulled away from the tank, leaving it behind as a relic of a different era. The captured M13 would not only serve as a trophy of their small victory in Italy, it would remain a stark reminder of the pitfalls of complacency in warfare. It was a powerful image, encapsulating the war's unforgiving nature, where only the adaptable would prevail. The laughter faded into the night, leaving an echo of camaraderie and resilience, the symbols of their journey, not just as soldiers, but as witnesses to history in the making. The capture of the Italian M13 tank by American troops in North Africa was not merely the acquisition of a piece of equipment, it was emblematic of the larger struggle between the Axis powers and the Allied forces. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the rugged terrain, the soldiers gathered around the tank, their laughter mingling with the distant echoes of combat. The M13 had been designed for mobility and speed, yet its frail engine and nearly useless radio stood as a testament to the disarray of Italian military engineering. It had been a relic of their early campaigns, a vehicle that had once bolstered the confidence of its operators, now facing the cruel realities of the battlefield. Upon closer inspection, the Americans noted the crude craftsmanship of the M13. Its armor was thin, and the riveted seams had weakened over time, leaving it vulnerable to the very artillery the Allies wielded with increased precision. Some of the soldiers shared stories of encounters with other armored vehicles, each recounting tales of near misses and miraculous escapes. Yet as they focused on their newfound prize, a sense of disillusionment seeped through the laughter. It was a reminder that even the most formidable machines could falter. The M13, with its weak engine sputtering like an old man's cough, illustrated the fragility of power, how quickly fortunes could turn on the battlefield. The soldiers used the M13 as a platform for camaraderie, climbing atop it to pose for photographs that would serve as mementos of their shared experience. One soldier, Private Harris, waved an American flag above his head, symbolizing the hope that had driven them through the harsh desert environment. His gesture resonated not just with patriotism, but also with an ironic acknowledgement of the vehicle's inadequacies. It was as if the M13 represented the clumsy, half-hearted attempts of the Italians to challenge their resolve, while the Americans reveled in the capture as a victory, however small. In a world scarred by war, even a simple moment of levity served as a stark contrast to the tension that enveloped them. The afternoon light gave way to twilight as the battery of artillery nearby rattled the ground, punctuating the evening air with an ominous reminder of the ongoing conflict. Conversation shifted from jest to strategy. Officers began to debate what to do with the tank. Its capture was a tactical boon, feeding into the larger narrative of superiority that the Allies sought to cultivate. They pondered whether to leave it as a decoy to lure German troops into the open or to tow it to their base for a closer analysis of its design. Each suggestion was met with differing degrees of enthusiasm, but among the ranks there was an unspoken understanding that every decision could have life or death consequences. As laughter faded into serious discussions, the symbolism of the M13 deepened. The tank, once a symbol of Italian pride, had become a mere heap of metal in the hands of the Americans. It represented the failing fortunes of fascist ideologies that sought to impose order through brute force, yet crumbled under the weight of mismanagement and hubris. The American soldiers, still buoyed by their earlier humor, were starkly aware that such victories, while sweet, were often bittersweet. They were witnesses not just to a military campaign, but to the unraveling of a regime that had once threatened to dominate Europe and North Africa. Meanwhile, the strategic importance of the North African campaign was becoming clearer with each passing day. Control of this region was paramount for both the Allies and the Axis. The Mediterranean acted as a vital artery for logistics, and the Axis ambition was to sever that lifeline. Allied forces, spurred on by morale-boosting victories, began to consolidate their power. The disparities between the capabilities of German forces and their Italian allies became increasingly pronounced. The M13 served as a microcosm of this imbalance. While the Germans relied on more formidable tanks, such as the Panzer III, the Italians had struggled to keep pace. Most startling was the palpable optimism that had begun to envelop the American troops. The capture of the M13 inspired a sense of invincibility, a feeling that they were on the precipice of something greater than mere survival. This mindset propelled them forward, instilling a belief that they could not only reclaim territory, but reshape the war's narrative. Each small victory felt like an affirmation of purpose, a reinforcement of the ideals they fought for, and the laughter around the tank echoed with the promise of liberation. As night fell, a cool breeze settled in, whispering through the shadows of the vehicles and tents. The soldiers, exhausted yet exhilarated, gathered around makeshift fires, sharing stories that blurred the lines between fact and fiction. The M13, now illuminated by the flickering firelight, seemed almost alive in its stillness, a poignant reminder of the journey they had undertaken and the challenges that lay ahead. The laughter had transformed into quiet reflections on the realities of war, mingling with the sounds of distant gunfire, a reminder that peace was not yet within reach, but it was a goal worth striving for, regardless of the weaknesses they faced. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the tangled thickets of the Italian countryside. The air was thick with dust and anticipation, remnants of the fierce clashes that had marked the advance of Allied forces through the region. Among the various units, the American troops, weary but resolute, had found themselves engaged not only with the enemy, but also with the peculiar artifacts of war left in their wake. It was in this charged atmosphere that they stumbled upon the Italian M13 tank, a relic of a bygone era, a testament to the hasty militarization that had swept through Europe in the years leading up to the conflict. As they approached the tank, the soldiers' laughter rang out, cutting through the tension. They marveled at the M13's diminutive stature, its contours a stark contrast to the formidable Sherman tanks that many had come to trust. It seemed almost absurd to them that such an underwhelming machine could have once been a source of pride for the Italian army. The tank's battered hull bore the scars of battle, its paint chipped away by shrapnel, yet it stood defiantly perched amidst the chaos. This was not merely a vehicle. It was a symbol of the shifting tides of war, of miscalculations and ill-fated strategies that had turned the tide against its operators. In the moments that followed, the soldiers set about assessing their newfound trophy. They opened the hatches gingerly, revealing the cramped interior, reeking of oil and stale air. What they found inside was a mechanical disappointment. The engine, a mere whisper of what was promised, wheezed pathetically as they cranked it over. It was a pitiful sound, echoing what they had come to understand about Italian military logistics, a reliance on outdated technology and a crippling lack of resources. The tank's radio, similarly, was inoperative, a stark reminder of the communication failures that had plagued the Italian forces throughout the campaign. The laughter that had erupted at first had now shifted to a sense of camaraderie among the soldiers. They exchanged witty remarks about the M13, likening it to a stubborn mule that refused to budge when needed most. This absurdity in the face of danger bolstered their spirits. It was not merely the tank that was weak, it was the very notion that any piece of machinery or strategic planning could ensure victory. As they mocked the Italian contraption, they also unwittingly celebrated their own resilience and adaptability, qualities that had seen them through intense battles and the harsh realities of war. As the sun continued its descent, the discussions turned reflective. Soldiers began to share stories of their encounters with German forces. Memories of ambushes, close calls, and lost comrades flooded back, intermingling with the humor. The M13 served as a backdrop to their shared experiences. It was a reminder of how quickly fortunes could change. A tank once deemed formidable had been reduced to a relic of failure, just as many had perceived the German positions to be on the verge of collapse. The irony of their situation did not escape them. They were laughing at a piece of machinery that had once commanded respect, while fighting an opponent who had, until recently, held all the cards. Yet amidst the levity, a somber reality lingered. Each soldier understood that the war was more than just machines. It was about lives, both lost and saved. The stories they shared were punctuated with the names of friends who would never return. The laughter softened, replaced by a contemplative silence as they acknowledged the fragile nature of their existence in this foreign land. The M13 tank, for all its mechanical shortcomings, stood as a grave reminder of the futility of war, a symbol of the lives intertwined with every battle, every advance, and every retreat. In that moment of quiet reflection, they felt a kinship, not only with each other but with all those who had fought before them across various fronts. They were part of a continuum, a thread woven into the vast tapestry of history. The M13, now stripped of its pretense, was emblematic of a greater truth. War was not merely about machinery or strategy, it was about the human spirit, its resilience and frailty. The machinery of war might fail, but the stories of those who fought, who laughed, cried, and stood together, carried on through time. As night descended, the soldiers secured the M13, marking it as a point of interest for their unit. It was more than just a trophy, it was now a part of their journey, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds and the grim realities of battle, there remained room for humor and reflection. They understood that their experiences were crucial in shaping the course of the war, each laugh and each story contributing to a collective narrative that would be shared long after the echoes of gunfire had faded from the hills of Italy. This tank, in all its inadequacy, would serve as a beacon of the absurdity of war, encapsulating the delicate balance between laughter and sorrow that defined their campaign. As dawn broke over the rolling hills of North Africa, American troops began their meticulous examination of the captured Italian M13 tank. It was a curious sight, a vehicle that had seen better days, its once formidable presence now reduced to a subject of ridicule among the soldiers. While the M13 was intended to provide a robust support platform in the conflict, its performance had often disappointed, rendering it more of a curiosity than a weapon of war. The soldiers of the 1st Armored Division, fresh from their own encounters with both the desert and the tenacity of German forces, shared a camaraderie that flourished in the absurdity of their newfound prize. They clambered around the tank, hands on their hips and laughter punctuating the morning air as they took stock of what their enemy had relied upon. Though the M13 bore the scars of battle, its engineering flaws were all too evident. The engine, a modest 140-horsepower Fiat power plant, was hardly mighty enough to inspire fear on the battlefield. American mechanics had developed an immediate rapport with the tank, mocking its sluggishness, while marveling at the irony of such a formidable reputation built on such a paltry foundation. The clattering of tools began to resonate as they set to work, their laughter transforming into a chorus of practical jokes about the mechanical limitations of their adversary. With each laughter-filled comment about its sputtering engine, a far cry from the robust, roaring power they had come to expect from their own Sherman tanks. They underlined a deeper understanding of the war unfolding around them. It was not merely about capturing an enemy vehicle, but about comprehending the vulnerabilities that lay within every adversarial facade. As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the dust of the desert, thoughts turned to the broader implications of their find. Each soldier was acutely aware that the M13 had once been a symbol of Italian military pride, a representation of their beleaguered attempts to establish dominance in North Africa. Yet, in the eyes of the soldiers, it had been reduced to an emblem of failure, a testament to misplaced faith in technology that could not deliver when it mattered most. The tank was a relic of a bygone optimism, its rusted exterior now a symbol of the Italian campaign's shortcomings against the tide of well-coordinated German operations. The irony hung in the air. A machine designed for dominance had instead become a trophy, a reminder of how the realities of warfare often diverged dramatically from the ambitions of its planners. As the mechanics worked, gasping for air under the sun's relentless heat, a quiet wisdom emerged. The recognition that resilience in battle extended beyond the capabilities of individual machines. The American forces had learned through their own experiences that success in modern warfare was an intricate dance of strategy, machinery, and human endurance. The M13's performance, or lack thereof, was a microcosm of this lesson. Each soldier found a sense of kinship in admiring their own tank's capabilities, but also in recognizing the broader narrative at play. The internal struggles within the Axis forces were being laid bare, and for the Americans, the M13 tank stood not just as a failure of Italian engineering, but as an emblem of the fractures emerging within enemy lines. As laughter faded into the background, conversations shifted towards the imminent drives to advance. The tank was no longer just a subject of ridicule, but rather a catalyst for conversations about the next phases of their campaign. The American forces, buoyed by their successes and emboldened by their understanding of enemy weaknesses, began to map out their strategies in earnest. The M13, with its unyielding presence, served as a reminder, not only of victory, but of the necessity of continual adaptation. The men understood that, in the rapidly evolving theater of war, even the most ostensibly inferior machines could offer insights that could lead to tactical evolution. Amidst the banter and reflections, one soldier pulled an old photograph from his pocket, a snapshot of his family taken just before the war. He gazed at it, momentarily lost in thought, and shared it with his comrades. It symbolized the lives they had left behind, juxtaposed against the absurdity of their present circumstances. The tank, once an instrument of the enemy, now became a backdrop for their shared humanity. In that moment, the soldiers recognized that they were bound not only by their shared mission, but by the collective sacrifices each had made in pursuit of a larger purpose. Hope and fear coalesced within them, forging a resolve that transcended the immediate battlefield. As afternoon approached, the soldiers began to dismantle parts of the M13, salvaging what they could to improve their own equipment. This act became symbolic, representing not just the repurposing of enemy technology, but the relentless drive for improvement and innovation that characterized the American forces. The laughter that had filled the air gave way to a more serious atmosphere as they focused on the task at hand. Each bolt removed and every gear inspected bore the weight of their experiences as they transformed a relic of defeat into a lesson for future endeavors. The echoes of their laughter were replaced by a collective understanding that every piece of machinery, whether triumph or folly, had its story, and each story played a crucial role in the larger narrative of the conflict. As dusk settled over the horizon, the soldiers gathered one last time around the M13, its engine still silent and its radio useless. Yet they found not just humor, but a deeper recognition of their journey. The tank had not only enriched their understanding of their enemies, it had also drawn together a disparate group of men, each navigating their own fears and hopes. They stood together, resolute in the knowledge that their experiences, marked by both folly and insight, would continue to shape their path forward in the tumultuous chapters still to unfold in the great theater of war. The M13, once a source of laughter, now lay transformed in their minds, a relic reshaped by the hands of those who dared to confront the chaos of conflict. The morning light filtered softly through the olive groves as the 3rd Infantry Division moved deeper into the Italian countryside. The awkward camaraderie of soldiers punctuated by laughter and the distant rumble of war. The captured M13 tank, an unlikely trophy of their advance, served as an unintentional emblem of the war's absurdity. Eager to make sense of their peculiar find, the men clustered around the vehicle, exchanging jokes about its feeble engine and lack of a reliable radio. A momentary reprieve from the grim reality of conflict, that loomed just beyond their laughter. As the American soldiers set to work examining the M13, they found that its frail engine was emblematic of a broader truth: the weariness of their Italian campaign, marked by supply shortages and logistical challenges. The once feared tank, now silent and still, represented the stark contrast between technological ambition and the practicalities of warfare. The Italian design, although innovative for its time, proved inadequate against the relentless offensive strategies employed by the Allies. It was a poignant reminder that machinery, like the soldiers who wielded it, could falter under pressure, revealing the limits of human ingenuity when faced with the brutalities of war. Sergeant Collins, a mechanic before he donned a uniform, squatted beside the tank with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. He carefully opened the engine compartment, revealing a tangle of wires and rust, a far cry from the robust machinery he had worked on back home. The sputtering heart of the tank, which once might have been a source of pride for the Italian soldiers, seemed to mock their efforts as it lay dormant. He chuckled to himself, wondering how many young men had invested their hopes and dreams in a vehicle that ultimately contributed little to the war effort. The stark reality of the tank's ineffectiveness played out as a dark comedy, underscoring the futility that often accompanied the warmongering ambitions of nations. Nearby, Private Hughes rummaged through the tank's interior, discovering maps and documents left behind by the Italian crew. As he sifted through the remnants of their hasty retreat, he felt a pang of empathy for the young soldiers who had occupied this space, fought fiercely for their homeland, and yet succumbed to the weight of an unyielding advance. The maps illustrated not just strategic military objectives, but also the geography of their fears. Hughes couldn't shake the thought that war, in all its chaos, was a profound equalizer. Each side could be rendered helpless before the machinery of fate, regardless of their national loyalties. The laughter continued as more soldiers joined the gathering, sharing tales of captured vehicles and the oddities of war. Each story wove a tapestry of brotherhood amid the uncertainty of their situation. The tank became a focal point, a catalyst for shared experiences and collective identity. Soldiers who had once been strangers now found common ground, bound together by their shared hardships and absurd encounters. Their laughter was a defiant stand against the shadows of despair that lurked behind them, offering a temporary sanctuary from fear and loss. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the reality of their mission loomed over them. The humor they found in the seized tank gradually dissipated as the sound of distant gunfire echoed in the hills. The M13, with its sputtering engine and ineffective radio, reminded them of the stakes at play. It was a symbol of the broader struggles they faced, the melding of hope and despair, triumph and tragedy. These men were more than mere soldiers. They were witnesses to history, grappling with the implications of their actions and the lives they affected along the way. The soldiers readied themselves for the next phase of their mission, knowing that victory was rarely as simple as capturing a tank. Each advancement brought new challenges, each skirmish a reminder of the complexities of war. The M13, once a defensive hope for its Italian crew, now lay dormant, a testament to the relentless march of progress and the ever-changing nature of conflict. In that moment, the men understood that every victory, no matter how small, was tempered by the sobering reality of the lives impacted by their actions. As they left the tank behind, the soldiers cast one last glance back, each reflecting on what it represented. It was a moment of shared recognition. They were part of something larger than themselves, caught in a tide of history that would not easily be forgotten. The laughter faded, replaced by the weight of unspoken thoughts and the burden of responsibility. They knew that the war would leave indelible marks on their souls, forever binding them to the experiences etched in their memories. As the sounds of warfare drew nearer, the soldiers steeled themselves for what lay ahead. With each step forward, they carried with them the echoes of laughter and the bittersweet memories of a captured tank, a reminder that even amidst the chaos, they were united in their humanity, fighting not just for victory, but for the hope of a world where laughter might once again ring freely across the fields of Italy. As the dust settled on the battlefield and laughter echoed among the American troops who had encountered the Italian M13 tank, a deeper reflection on the nature of war began to emerge. This light-hearted moment amidst the chaos belied the grim realities faced by soldiers on all sides, caught in a conflict that often blurred the lines between courage and folly. The capture of the tank, marked by its underwhelming engine and unreliable radio, served as a reminder of the complexities of warfare, not merely in terms of tactics and technology, but also in the human spirit that endures under duress. Each piece of equipment, like the individuals who operated them, carried stories of ambition, fear, and resilience. As we look back on these moments, we are called to honor the multifaceted narratives of war, recognizing that every soldier, whether friend or foe, was a participant in a larger historical tapestry. In reflecting on such encounters, we bear the responsibility to remember and learn, ensuring that the laughter of one generation does not obscure the lessons of sacrifice and the profound cost of conflict for all involved. History, after all, is not just about victories. It is also about understanding the echoes of our shared humanity.